All right, today we're going to talk about how to get an internship in venture capital, which, let's be honest, is pretty challenging to do. Getting a job's hard, getting an internship is equally as difficult in many cases. But stick to the end and I'll show you how once you land that internship, how you can turn it to your favor to help land your dream job, even if that dream job isn't in venture capital. Okay, so the first thing you should understand is what is a day in the life of an intern at a venture fund going to actually be like? Well, here's the thing. It hopefully should give you exposure to entrepreneurs, because you'll hopefully be like meeting with entrepreneurs and helping screen out deals and identify interesting opportunities. You'll probably hopefully get to work on some financial analysis, some market analysis, some competitive analysis. And hopefully you'll be able to spend some time with the partners and learn from them. Typically venture funds are pretty small, and so they don't necessarily have a super robust training program for their interns. That's pretty uncommon. But a lot of it's going to be mentorship, apprenticeships type style. And they're going to have you do stuff that, frankly, they don't have a lot of time to do, and it's probably not the most important. That's a challenge for you, though, because they are small organizations, there's a ton of need. And if you can identify those needs and step in and fix those, you can make your internship super valuable and become a valuable part of their team. And we'll talk about that some more later on. Why should you consider doing a venture capital internship? Let me hit you with some of the cons right off the bat. So one, I just mentioned, you're probably not going to be able to do very much that's super high value to the organization, because as an intern, they're not going to trust you with a lot of autonomy or a lot of responsibility. And they typically don't have the time and energy to put a lot of training into you. So that's a con. The other con is that it's pretty low likelihood that they're going to hire you after doing the internship. As I've mentioned in other videos, venture capital funds, they're small organizations. And so you have to be able to convince them that you're going to grow the pie more than you're going to take from it in order for them to be excited about bringing you on. And as an intern, that's really hard to do and to convince them of. And then the last con, because venture capital is such a competitive industry, it's rare that venture funds are jumping up and down to pay a lot to their interns. So, a lot of them are unpaid, they're not going to convert into a full-time job, and the work may or may not be as meaningful as you'd hope. So those are some of the cons, but let's talk about some of the pros. So the pros are, because they're competitive, if you land one, it can be really great to have on your resume, because it becomes this really strong indicator that you are a high quality person. The other reason that can be a pro is that you will get the opportunity to engage and learn from some amazing investment professionals and hopefully entrepreneurs. And that kind of access and network can be incredibly beneficial, not just for your first job, but for subsequent jobs throughout your career. And then the last reason that it can be really helpful is that there are so many things, so many nuances about working in venture capital that tend to be super important that you can't learn any other way than being there in person and seeing how the sausage is made. You can't get this stuff out of learning in a classroom or a textbook. You really have to be there, and there's no substitute for it. And so, the learning opportunities could be huge. Let's talk about, if you still want to pursue that path and get an internship, let's talk about how you actually land the internship. First, you got to be able to find firms that are doing internships. Now, I would recommend looking at the funds in your local area and seeing if they already have an internship program. You might be surprised, but a lot of venture funds have internship programs. They're typically run during the summer, although some will run them in fall and spring. And so those can be worthwhile applying to and looking out for. Now, if a fund doesn't offer an internship program, that doesn't mean that they're not willing to take interns. It just means they don't have a formalized process. And in that case, I would recommend reaching out to those companies, finding a way in, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about how to actually land the internship, but find a way to get connected to the partners so that you can have a conversation around creating your own little internship program, especially if you're willing to work for free, which I think is well worth it. That can open up a lot of potential opportunities because it doesn't cost them anything to bring you on. And then the last approach that I'd recommend is there are some really good resources out there that you can use that list internships and job opportunities and post them on a regular basis. One of the best ones out there is a newsletter and blog called johngannonblog.com. We'll put the link down below in the comments so that you can reference it. But they do a great job curating all the different job opportunities and internship opportunities that are out there and putting them in an email list that goes out on a regular basis. The downside with that is that it's going out to like 19,000 other people. So there's a lot of competition for those jobs, but it can be a good way to find out about internship programs that are kicking off and available. And especially if they're in your area and you can find a unique way to get your foot in the door there, it can be really valuable. Let's say you've applied, you've identified, the 1, 2, 3, 5 venture funds where you think you'd like to intern. How do you actually land the internship? On your resume, highly recommend you spend some time crafting it in such a way that it demonstrates real passion around technology and venture capital and investing. And technology, when I say technology, like whatever it is that fund focuses on, try to craft your resume and cover letter in a way that communicates passion for that. So if they're really into like Web3 and DeFi and crypto, like talk about how you've been trading crypto on Robinhood for a while or whatever it might be, or some of your favorite companies in the DeFi space. Or if it's a biotech company or biotech venture fund, talk about the classes you've taken and the science that you find super interesting that's kind of cutting edge in that space. Be able to demonstrate passion and knowledge, and that will kind of set you apart from a lot of other individuals. The other thing is a lot of venture funds are looking for people that are going to like crank hard and that are really sharp. So the more you can present yourself as being super intelligent, like hardworking and super passionate, like those are the things that are going to communicate really well. That's just for your resume and your cover letter. That's not going to be enough to get you the internship if you want to really guarantee it. What I'd recommend to really set yourself apart is do the same thing that great entrepreneurs do when they want to meet with a venture capitalist. And that is get yourself a warm intro. So who are some of the resources that you can use as warm intros? So one, if you've got any sort of connection to the partners at the fund, leverage that, right? Maybe you know them through a family friend or what have you. That can be a great way to get connected to them. Another way to do it is think about who the venture capitalists either really like, really look up to, or need to keep happy. And oftentimes the two people that fit that role are their investors, their LPs, and the entrepreneurs that they back or wish that they had backed. And so if you can tap into one of their investors and or one of the entrepreneurs they've backed and get them to make the intro and the reference, that can be incredibly powerful in terms of communicating and signaling that you're a high quality potential candidate. If you can't do that, then I would reach out to prior interns, especially if they've gone to your school. They can also be really valuable resources in terms of both telling you what the internship will really be like on a day-to-day basis and getting you connected to the company. Now, hopefully the venture fund had a good experience with that former intern, because you always roll the dice a little bit getting a recommendation from somebody that was kind of mediocre. But if they were highly respected, then that recommendation can go a long way. Definitely try and find a personal contact or warm intro, because that will really set you apart and push your resume to the top of the pile. So like I said before, reputation, relationships are really the key in venture capital, and so people put a lot of weight on those warm intros. So those are my best tips on how to get an interview. Now, I said at the beginning that I would help you see how an internship in venture capital, even though it's got a lot of cons, like we talked about earlier, can be really helpful in terms of landing your dream job. And the reason for that is that management consulting and investment banking and pretty much every other job in high finance are going to put a lot of weight on an experience that you've had at a venture capital fund, because they know that one, those internships are hard to get, which means that you must be a very high quality candidate. The other thing is that you are demonstrating real passion for high finance and things related to what they do. And lastly, hopefully that experience has helped you develop some of the skills and perspectives and experience that they're really looking for. And so even if you ultimately aren't going to work in venture capital, whether it's because that's not something you're interested in long term, or because you know that it's just really hard to land one of those jobs straight out of undergrad, those internships can be really valuable for landing those other dream jobs that you might want to have. It can even be really helpful for landing a job at maybe a fast-growing startup that may put a really high value on the relationships you have from that internship experience with that venture fund and with the entrepreneurs that they've backed. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Venture capital internships are super fun. That's how I got started in the industry. Was I joined University Venture Fund as an intern and had just a phenomenal experience, changed my life, and I hope that you can find the same in yours. If this was helpful, I have another video where I talk about how to get into venture capital with no experience, which could be another kind of step in your progression.